All right, call to order the June 15th Planning Commission meeting. There is no public, so there's no public comment. Does anyone have any additions to the agenda? I sort of have one, which is just, I think we should take a minute. Maybe we'll do this. Maybe we'll do this first, actually, if everyone's cool with it. And we should decide just where we want to prioritize a few things, because Brad and I had a call with someone from the state about the village center. And something came out of that. And then Sandy has, and maybe you can chime in on this item too, Sandy. The climate action plan is almost done, which I don't know if you all remember, that committee was working on that, and then it was going to come back to us. So that's almost done. So we just have to, and then obviously we're working on all the zoning regs, so we just have to figure out how we want to prioritize our time, I think. And since we don't have the minutes, actually, and there's no minutes to approve, maybe just start with that, like time-wise. So Brad and I, super quick, Brad and I had a call with this person at the state about village centers, because we wanted to confirm what we had heard from Nick. With Nick being gone, we obviously need to understand this. And it is correct that we cannot expand the village center. However, the big takeaway was, I don't know if everyone remembers that neighborhood development area. There was like a, was it a half mile, quarter mile outside the, whatever the distance was, you can designate that. And apparently it has a lot of benefits under Act 250 and some other stuff.
Designated as a neighborhood development
area, okay. I believe it's NDA. I know that's acronym, but quarter mile. Thank you, Boris. So he gave us the name of someone at the state who I emailed today, copied Brad. But apparently this is a fair amount of work. That's what the other person told us. We have not spoken to the expert yet, but the person who knows a decent amount, but not the expert, said, I think you guys might want to spend some time on this, have a conversation with this woman, but I'm warning you in advance, I think it's fair amount of work. She can tell you more. So I think that's one thing that's on our agenda, if we want to try to expand that. Number two, I mean, it doesn't, if we want to spend time on it collectively, right? And number two would be, Sandy, maybe you could give like a 2-minute deal on the climate action, and then we can figure out how we want to prioritize our time for the next 3 months or something.
So the Climate Change Task Force for the last year has been working on, what our action plan should be for Underhill. And at our next meeting, we should be finalizing a plan that includes sections on fossil fuel reduction for buildings and transportation, renewable energy, forest sequestration, and then a resilience and adaptation part of it, where you try to build resilience in the community through infrastructure, through social kinds of programs, that kind of thing. We took a lot of the information from our town plan and from the hazard mitigation plan that Underhill has. So a lot of the items have connections already to what we think we should be doing, but they may not have surfaced to be a priority for our group to be implementing. So the plan is there. We also have a sort of guidance on implementing, like who should be doing what and that kind of thing, very similar to what we have in our town plan already. And some ideas about funding opportunities. There are some new federal funds that can help with a lot of energy topics. So that should be finished at our next meeting, which is the last Wednesday of the month. 28th, maybe.
And then the third thing, which also came up on Brad and I's call today, which we all know a decent amount from other things, is do we want to spend time on this wastewater stuff? Because the guy from the state gave me the contact information for someone else who runs that program, and we can say, oh, we want to spend some time thinking more about wastewater in the village centers. But I think that is also a massive time commitment and a large undertaking. So I guess my question to the group is just, do we want to keep going through the regs and just and bring the climate action stuff in and just try to do that over the next 2 months and say, hey, we're not going to worry about this neighborhood development area until we finish the regs and deal with the climate action stuff?
One question.
Yeah.
The neighborhood development area, is that something that you applied in the village center?
Whole separate application.
Okay.
It's just the village center guy knows a little bit about it.
So is that, how often do we do that?
I don't know.
Every year,
That's a
or
great
every
question.
10 years, or?
It's definitely not every year. If I were to make an educated guess, it's every 8 years, just like the village center, but that is a total guess.
So if we don't do anything now, then it'll be.
Well, we could do it anytime though.
Oh, okay.
It's not tied out with the village center. Sorry, I misunderstood your question. We could say we're going to ignore the neighborhood development and we're going to think about it in January.
Right.
And then we could go to the state and, I'll still do the call with her to get the information, even if we say we don't want to do it for 4 months, and I could give everyone the 10-minute wrap on it. But yeah.
Okay, so there are a lot of pluses for doing it.
Supposedly. I haven't had the call yet.
Yeah, so you don't really know a lot of the details.
All I know is the guy from the state told me that it's a really good program. There's a lot of like incentives for developers to streamline Act 250 in these areas you designate, and that he thinks it would be great for us. I'm repeating back what he said. He thinks it would be great for us, but that it's a ton of work. And I said, okay, well, I'll email the person and ask to set up an introductory call.
Yeah.
And what's the feasibility of that expanded footprint of land being viable for development as far as soils and septic and so forth? And
That's a good question.
And does that go hand in hand with maybe the septic, the town septic, municipal septic? That might be a necessity to maximize that.
Yeah, I looked into it a little bit, because you can get it for the town or you can get it for a certain area. And for the work we were doing with Habitat down there, I looked into that. And you have to get like 8 out of 10 of these different items. And the big one we didn't have was community septic. And so for like Underhill, you have to water and septic for a lot of, or you have to have all these other things, which we didn't have either, things like
for the neighborhood development area,
zoning and, things like that.
He said zoning was a big part of it.
Yeah.
And like sidewalks,
lighting, the kind of things you'd expect in a neighborhood,
Right.
Well, maybe we ultimately won't qualify for the neighborhood development.
But it's basically redevelopment, not development, because by the time that you build the Habitat does their project, there won't be any land for development. It's just redevelopment.
Yeah, you'd be tearing stuff down.
Or so if you were to look at that map, the map online of the village center, you go to whatever is the Vermont, the website. I've looked at it before. Has everybody looked at that? The map where you go online and you can look at the individual plots of the whole state, parcel finder or whatever.
Yeah.
So if you look at that, you'll see that there's no land that can be developed in the flats.
With our current zoning.
Yeah, it'd be taking maybe somebody who has like an 1.5 acre lot, they could actually, if the zoning were different, they could do something different with that lot, or they could add an accessory dwelling unit if they have, the septic capacity for that. But there's really so do we need to spend a lot of time on something that's not really going to be, to work? Because if septic's one of those things, then everything is pretty much built on it, I guess is where I'm going with this.
Well, maybe what you're saying then is we have to finish going through all the regs anyway, because if we wanted to do anything, it would depend on there being different rules. Like the lot sizes could be smaller.
And they're already pretty small.
They're already pretty small, yeah.
They're most of them are under 1 acre, I would think. But
well, maybe on that, I should just do a call with this person
Find out
with
anyway.
Brad, find out if, sounds like you know the most. If she looks at Underhill and says like, yeah, there's no point in you doing this, then I can just report back. Okay,
Yeah.
easy. I already sent emails.
Yeah.
And then it sounds maybe on wastewater then, your argument on wastewater, maybe wastewater is sort of the same argument though. Maybe we need to finish going through the zoning regs, doing what we're doing, and then based on where that lands, the spots decide if we want to spend any time on wastewater.
Right.
The only thing about that is it takes so long to get to the point where you do anything that it seems like you gotta start at some
Yeah,
time.
10 years, before
Mhm.
it's built probably. I mean, could be that long. So,
Well, maybe I email the wastewater person and say at the state and just say like, this is sort of our dilemma. Is there someone who could talk to our planning commission and just kind of help us think about it for half an hour or something? Well,
Where are we with Jericho in that?
no, it just kind of died.
It did again?
it what now?
Just kind of died, I
Yeah.
think. Brad was going to reach back out to their town administrator, but
You know what the obstacles were for them to not consider?
I know
Uh,
we tried to find out though.
Yeah.
But that'd be a good question for Brad. Okay.
You know, sitting in the background of things is the mapping issue.
Yeah.
And that's been putting that off for, Lee mentioned, it's been going on 4 years we've been wanting to do something.
Well, there's actual mild progress on that, sort of indirectly in the sense that, this is Sandy's news, but they got funding for the second half of the natural resources inventory from the select board. So once that's done, then we'll actually have the data to do the map. How long will that take, Sandy?
They'll finish, the end of June next year, so it'll be a
Oh,
whole
so
nother year.
A year.
Yeah.
So we'll put that on the 24-25 agenda.
Get started on things.
Yeah, unless there's something we could start on sooner, but I mean, that's another thing. Maybe we revisit that later in the year or something like that. All right, so how does this sound? We continue. So Brad's touching base. All right, so on the village center designation, I think we're on hold for a week or two because Brad needs to touch base with the town administrator in Jericho now that Nick is gone and figure out exactly where we are. Because the person from the state said he would prefer to see them come in together because it's a joint village center, obviously, as you all know. So Brad needs to do that.
Oh, you mean Underhill Center and Underhill?
No, flats, I mean, sorry, the flats in Jericho, they want to come in together. Yeah, that's what he said. Nick didn't tell us that, but that's what he told Brad and I on the phone today. He'd very much prefer they come in packaged up together. So Brad was gonna touch base with Jericho. So maybe what we do then is work on the bylaw amendments, keep working on that, and is anyone opposed to sort of at the same time, Sandy can start to present some of the climate action plan stuff, starting with next meeting, so we can kind of make the meetings more interesting too, like split it up a little bit. Okay. Not that they're not. I know this is fascinating right now. Okay, so you need a half an hour to do the intro, you told me. So next meeting, what we'll do, if everyone's cool with it, is 30 minutes climate action plan overview, 1 hour bylaw amendments.
When is the next meeting after?
It's after your thing because
Okay, it'll be the
we
next day.
skip to July now.
Okay.
Because this is the second one in June, so actually let me look. We're not randomly hitting the 4th of July for a meeting or anything like that, are we? Nope, July 6th. We'll do the next meeting.
Now, there were some things that we wanted to get before the voters as soon as we could, basically.
Oh, I might have really good news on that. Kale sent me an email. I should have opened with this. Kale sent me an email, which I sent to Brad, and I then forgot to ask him about it, saying, I'm just going to read it. I'll forward this to everyone. I understand that at some point in the past, Underhill voters voted to require that any bylaw updates be approved by Australian ballot vote rather than by simple motion of the select board. Although I never confirmed that while I was there, I simply took Brad's word that a vote took place, that happened. I'm writing, though, to inform you that the new housing bill removed the authority of the voters to bind the select board in that manner. This means that as of July 1st, that vote to require bylaw updates be voted on by Australian ballot is no longer valid, and the select board can approve bylaws by simple majority after the required procedures have been followed. Although the select board could, if the select board wanted to, they could choose to put it to a town vote, but it's up to them.
So it's not illegal then, it is legal if the select board
Yep.
decides, yes.
Yeah.
The voters.
Can they do, just do like
Yeah,
some
chunks
of
at
it,
a time.
not all of it?
Yeah,
Oh,
chunks
that-
at a time. I know.
Well, I'm totally opposed to it not going before the voters, strongly so. It should go before the voters.
Well,
in my
that'll
opinion.
be up to the select board, though. That's not up to us. But I mean, you
It
can
is the select
obviously
board. We can
express that
offer
to
our
the select
opinion
board.
on that. I think we should.
Yeah, I mean, but it's ultimately that this is up to the select board. Then it says, I note this for you both as a change in the law that impacts your current work on bylaw updates. But I would like to note that Cale disagrees with you. I'll forward the whole email. I'm not going to read the other paragraph.
Disagree in what we're saying.
His view is, to paraphrase, it's just super long. His view, to paraphrase, is that complex documents like these are better served by being produced and approved internally by persons with expertise, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah.
Well, so it's just really long. No offense, Gail, if you watch this recording. I just don't want to read the entire paragraph because it's super long. So anyway, so it's good news, is my point. So if the select board so chose,
Good news meaning what?
then it's up to the select board if we wanted to do these in chunks. You disagree with this, obviously, but it's up to this. If the select board, if we wanted to just do ADUs, here's my counter argument to you. I think in real time, if we just wanted the select board to approve ADUs, they could. It does not have to go. We don't have to do this all at once in one giant package.
Yeah, right.
At
Well, I
town
thought-
meeting.
Yeah.
It sounds like you don't agree with that. I don't know how other people
Well,
feel. I don't really know how I feel about it.
We were originally thinking about getting the ADUs before the voters at the next voting.
Which would not be
Fall,
a town meeting, though.
Not that meeting, but the voting that, well, that would be the next town meeting.
It's town meeting.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, the good news would be we have the option,
Yeah.
depending upon how people feel, we have flexibility.
Yeah.
Anyway. I totally forgot about that email, actually, so that's other interesting. We can talk about that when we want. Obviously, that's not an urgent matter immediately, but,
Well,
and I don't know how the select board feels either.
this is an issue that will get discussed in town, and,
Mhm.
I'm sure there will be some strong opinions on it, so I don't think it's something that will easily just sort of slip through the select board.
Yeah.
Without,
No idea.
public input and even the vote on it.
Mhm.
We'll see.
Thankfully, I'm not on the select board, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That is a note, though. I need to forward that email to Brad and ask his thoughts. Just to confirm he agrees with Kale.
The rest of the process for bylaw approval is still in place though, like there were hearings and.
I don't know. We'll have to educate ourselves now. That's Kale just sent me that email like yesterday or something like that.
And that's Sandy, you're talking about the meetings, public meetings and so on?
Well, I can't remember if there was a whole other process to approve the bylaws. At one point, I remember it had to go to the legislature for approval.
What?
That was the
Or
charter
the
change. I think you're thinking of the charter change with the local option centers.
Not the bylaws.
Right.
Bylaws have traditionally been approved by the voters.
Yeah.
But a charter change, yeah, that goes to the legislature.
So from your experience, have a lot of people been involved in their input at the meetings and been interested in
No.
the bylaws?
No, not one. But they
Like
come in with
5
strong
or-
opinions.
Okay. 'Cause
I
if
have a suspicion that it's gonna be just like the town plan. It's gonna be us and
Yeah, they're not big.
two of our closest friends who come to the
we-
meeting.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge to get the information out there.
Yeah.
And typically the best way to do it is to be right there outside the door during the voting, basically, with information for them coming in. Because about 95% of them will say, what are we voting on?
So maybe that's why they don't vote on
Well,
it
but I
anymore.
don't like the idea of it just going through a select board. It just, that doesn't, I don't like it.
Should we all voice our opinions on this one?
Roy,
I think I'm fine with it doesn't go to a vote if there's not a lot of interest in it
Well,
previously, so that's.
let's see.
Boris.
I mean, it's tough because this requires a lot of high information voter to be able to accurately vote on something like this. And I understand your principle. I agree with your principle, Stan, but in reality, I don't know that people can make a good decision on something like this that's really complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tim.
Yeah, it's just from personal experience. When you look at the ballot, you see something on there and check yes or no, you haven't read it, right? It's like multiple choice, right? Who wins?
Mark?
Yeah,
Well, this would just be another way of further disenfranchising the voter from the town business. So I'm more in David's camp on that one.
Sandy?
I think that the select board meetings are open to the public and they, we're having hearings where people can voice their concerns. So to put it in front of the voters and they don't know anything about it just doesn't seem like it's the right way to go. So
One thing we could do, just for people to think about, no need to decide today, is when we finish ADUs, we could say, so everyone's opinion gets expressed, hey, select board, we finished the ADU section. This is what our project is. We finished the ADU section and the trail section, the two that are done. We have a disagreement and we'll write it nicely, right? But there's a difference of opinion on the planning commission as to, this is what the new rule says from the state after Brad confirms that. There's a disagreement on the planning commission as to whether to hold all these and wait until town meeting and keep going, or because the new rule allows the select board to just approve things on their own, that would be another choice. It's possible this disagreement on the planning commission represents the views, there'd be a difference of opinion amongst folks who live in Underhill. What do you all want to do? You tell us. Should we keep going forward and finish the rest of them and package them all up and send them, and you guys would prefer to do them on town meeting day? Or would you guys prefer to vote on the ADU and trail stuff now and just not to take the easy way out, but send it to them to make the decision?
Yeah.
That's one choice for us to make.
Wow.
That way everyone's views we don't have to say who thinks what, but everyone's views get reflected and the select board can decide what they want to do, since it's up to them.
I can honestly say that I don't recall half the conversations we had previously about the bylaws we've discussed so far.
Well,
So we're gonna have to I feel like we're gonna have to revisit some.
We're gonna have to start over.
So if we had sections done that they could approve, that would seem more, I mean, I totally respect David Mark's opinion. I totally do. I understand why you would want to vote on it. I really do. I can see that, if some people would be offended by that, and personally I wouldn't, because before I did this, I never even read them unless I needed to apply it to something I was working on. But that was a small bit of it, So, yeah. So if we could finish sections and have it done and clear, then, and they could look at it and approve it, that would seem logical to me, but they have to decide what to do, obviously.
Yeah.
It's up to them. It's going to be up to them.
It's going to be up to them. So I don't know, everyone mull it over. Maybe in the next meeting we can think about, my gut would be to send a letter saying there's different opinions. These are the choices.
Yeah.
It's up to you guys anyway. What do you want to do? But yeah. I don't know if that's the easy way
I
out.
understand the full process. I mean, before we actually present this to the select board, we would have public hearings on this, I guess.
Well, I don't know. We don't know. That's part of the, we don't know. I literally read you the email from Kale that says.
I can't imagine everything is being streamlined to the effect that we're not going to have any public hearings on this. We just want to put to the select board, have them put their stamp on it, and that's it.
Well, it could be though that the select board hearings are public per Sandy's
Well,
thing,
they
so
have
the
their own
legislature
hearings,
thought, I don't know the history of the rule or anything. You know as much as I do. I didn't
Well,
look into it.
all right, let's find out exactly what the rule is.
I'll talk to Brett.
Yeah, there's Kale's, synopsis of it.
Yeah.
Whatever, is he missing a point or has he got the whole thing there?
Yeah, I forgot about it altogether.
Legislature that has recently been passed?
Yes, he said it's in the housing bill that just went through. That's what the email
It
said.
has been signed by the governor?
Yes.
It was
Yeah, he
signed.
did sign.
Yeah, I think it was signed.
Yeah, so what's the bill number?
100.
Oh, he's got it. He's got
Is that
it.
an S100?
Yeah.
It is, it's S100.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll check into that and just see what the actual statement is that the.
It's
legislature-
S1, yeah, it's S100, yep.
Okay. See what Montpelier wants to shove down our.
So
throats.
here's what, if you want the specifics, he says S100 repeals 24 VSA 4442C2. And it's that language that,
Okay.
and I'll forward this stuff
Okay,
around.
before we do anything with the select board, we should check out exactly.
Oh,
what
of
this
course,
says.
we don't want to send a letter to the select board that's factually incorrect, so, yeah.
No, yeah, and then come back and have them say, well, the actual rule is this, and you're
Yeah.
ahead of the game.
No, I'll talk to Brad, so and everyone look it up or whatever, we'll make sure we understand it, then we can decide what we want to do. So,
Got it.
So it'd be good for all of us to read that.
Yeah.
and as you already know, the second thing he told me was that, we all know this. Oh, he replied back to himself. Oh, yeah, and that bill made duplexes available by right anywhere that a single family home is allowed, so there is no more single family zoning in Underhill. So I think we all already knew that, though.
So we should like nix this one that says single family dwelling.
Oh, yeah, we'll have to clean that up when we go back through the bylaws. Okay, I think we're ready for the David Edson show. Back to ADUs.
Well, I sent around the rewrite to everyone. Did everybody get a chance to read that?
Yes.
Yeah? Does it look okay? The changes in the B, well, in A, I took out the IE thing, i.e. habitable space. I took that out. So that's all, the only change in the section A. In section B, I rewrote this.
Is there, I'm sorry, is there a copy of this somewhere so I can?
Yeah, we need copies.
Here.
I have this.
Let's photocopy that, yeah.
So how does it?
I got so many of these going on right now.
It's
Some homework. Clean up. Like, good boy.
Copy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I have it. No, I don't.
Is it two-sided?
Minutes.
Inside. Okay. I'll start.
It's lit up in green and we still didn't see it.
You did it, David.
You did.
So I think I kind of got the language here
Thank you.
as to what we were generally in agreement on.
Yeah.
The first part, I included and. So the first part is just a permitted use in a existing or proposed appurtenant structure, keeping to the language that we have been using, that is in conforming to the district regulation. That means 20 feet from the boundaries in most of the districts and is closer to the single-family dwelling than to the property boundary as measured between the closest points.
Wait a minute, where is that in here? No, that's
It's under B.
B, okay.
B.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So trying to put together what we had discussed and what works out, basically. So this would just be a permitted use. It'd just be a straightforward thing. So if the appurtenant structure is in conformance, if it's 20 feet from the boundary, you can put a accessory dwelling unit in it, but it also has to be closer to the single family dwelling, both of those characteristics. So if it's 20 feet, it still has to be 20 feet from the boundary, or, and basically closer to the family dwelling than the property line, both of those things.
Closer to the existing house than.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
boy, I don't know about that one.
So-
I'm not feeling that. I really.
Say it again, Roy.
This is just a straight permitted. The next one allows for a conditional review, a conditional use, and if it's, it's
If,
that's different. But,
okay, let's read
okay, but
that.
the first one. Okay, well, and then in the second part, if a appurtenant structure is in non-conformance, if it's actually been constructed closer to the boundary than 20 feet,
The existing house is,
Yeah,
you're
then-
talking about, yeah.
maybe the Development Review Board would okay that. But this also adds, provided that it is closer to the single family dwelling than to the boundary. So. This is kind of
I think there's a lot of ways that you could throw, you could interpret this actually, but
Well,
I have to really
like
think.
this, it would come
I'm,
out something like that.
What's that?
This is just a diagram of a couple of characteristic situations. So that, that's allowing a 70-foot setback by for the primary dwelling, which is in most districts, but 20 feet for the accessory units.
Does everybody understand this? I mean, do you understand this? Everybody? I mean, I'm not totally.
Okay.
What's the bit you don't get, Roy, so that I can understand?
So
I'm not saying I
if I
understand.
wanna- Yeah, okay, so at my house, it was built within the setback.
Yeah.
In the regulations.
Yeah.
Right.
And my neighbor's house was built the same way,
Yeah.
okay? And I want to build an accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah.
And I can build it, 20 feet from the property, the sideline, okay?
Yeah.
Unless his house is closer to that line than my house is, that if that's the
No,
case.
his house doesn't enter
Not
into it
yet.
at all.
Oh, okay.
It's only the boundary, the line.
Yeah, your
So-
primary dwelling and your boundary is all that's involved here. The boundary between you and your neighbor, not his house.
The boundary between,
Yeah. Like for
My
instance, if
neighbor-
you've got well, you're already in non-conformance, being closer to the boundary than regulations require, right?
okay.
The point was that for this, extra wording was to prevent people from, as Brian was saying last time, sticking the Airbnb way out on the other end of their property next to somebody else, and they're sitting pretty all quiet and isolated in their primary dwelling. That was the reason for the.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but I was thinking about it too, I was just looking at our property, and I didn't see this too well, but I did something similar to David. I like the wording, I think David did a great job on the wording, because I didn't think about such things as measured between the closest point. I think that's a great addition to it. I guess my worry is that it's too restrictive. Because like, I'm sorry if you can see this or not.
Yeah, I can see it perfectly.
So this Sharpie black outline is our property. And this is triangle shape. And our neighbor is way over here. It's not close to the property lines at all. This one is kind of right here, but back here there's nothing, you know. So in this case, this this line here represents the zone in which you could put the ADU under that.
Yeah.
So basically it rules out all this as an option. That's a lot. It's a lot of property.
Setback, basically.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's kind of nifty in a way, but then it does end up being kind of restrictive too.
So we can't eliminate the setbacks. You know, we can deal with them in one way or another, but we can't eliminate them.
So which,
No, I'm saying that this isn't setbacks. This is
It's doing the math on your
doing the
formula.
math on the
Because it has to be closer to the house than the property boundary, so it pushes it into that envelope, basically.
So this line represents halfway between the primary residence and the
Oh,
property
okay.
lines.
Yeah,
So what I'm saying is all this is no go because of
Mhm.
that rule. So I just wanted to bring it up since.
Yeah.
you'd be
Right.
really
Well, that's the
restricting.
idea.
Yeah, you'd be
Is to try and keep the development within an area and not, you know, spread it around, break up properties, so that you have, you know, the wide, you know, primary dwelling and then an accessory dwelling on the opposite end of the property with driveways going through both of them maybe. You know, it's all that developed area that, well, impinging on wildlife and so on. So that's sort of the idea.
Cluster development.
Yeah, right. It's sort of clustering and keeping it together basically in one spot.
Yeah.
Or within an area, but it allows a fair amount of distance.
I think adding a conditional use clause in this complicates it even further because we're trying to get away from the conditional use.
Yeah, I know, but that's important to have there because you do have situations where you have you know, a non-conforming structure basically.
And what now?
You've already got, say, a non-conforming dwelling. And then in order to put in an accessory dwelling unit, it may have to go, or you might have to, or want to, put it closer to a stream than the regulations allow. Now, the state says 50 feet. You have to be back from wetlands 50 feet. Our regulations say 100 feet. That the Development Review Board could look it over and say, well, you can't do it in any other way, you know, or this will work best basically if you push back the setback, you know, build in the setback actually, but not farther than what the state says you can, like as far as wetlands go.
My
Sorry, go
thinking,
ahead.
oh,
No, go ahead.
my thinking about the nonconformance was that the dwelling is already in nonconformance, such as like in the villages where, you know, it's grandfathered in, it's 1 acre zoning, but they only have 3/4 of an acre or something like that. Then you have a nonconforming dwelling already and you want to put an ADU on it. That's where you would need a conditional use, I think.
Actually, well, nonconformance, you know, that's another issue here, but it does say in the nonconforming lots, it says that a development of a nonconforming lot under this section that is accessed by a 20-foot easement or right of way shall be limited to one principal use or structure and associated accessory structures. So if you have a nonconforming lot, you're still allowed the
Accessory
principal
structure,
use and an accessory.
as long as it's not more non-conforming than the house.
Well, it's As far
That's-
as the house itself is concerned, well, you see, it is already a non-conforming lot. So,
Well-
like it's a small lot, larger acreage designated area. Non-conforming lot, too small for the district, basically.
Yeah. So if you have a non-conforming house on a lot, okay, and you want to build an accessory structure or accessory dwelling unit, that can't be any more, I'm thinking of addition. The addition can't make the existing structure any more non-conforming. So that's a different thing altogether. So if you're adding
That's
it.
a structure that's in non-conformance,
Yeah.
because it's within a setback, say.
Yeah.
I don't know what else, how else it might be in non-conformance.
But getting back to this,
Mhm.
so you have a house that's in conformance, okay? It was built to the setbacks and the regulations, and you want to build an accessory dwelling unit.
Right.
Right now, you can build it, say, in most of the districts, 20 feet from the sideline, right?
The accessory dwelling unit is not necessarily, no.
No, well, if you wanted to do it now, if you were to come in today and get a permit,
Yeah.
that it would be the same setback as an accessory
I don't
structure.
think so.
No, it is. Believe me, because we went through this with Nick and he had issued a permit to somebody with that in mind. And if you hire an engineer to come out today to look at your lot, because you have to do that when you build an accessory dwelling unit,
Right.
because you might have to upgrade your septic or your well, they have to look at all.
I thought Nick answered this. I thought Nick said, remind me, someone tell me if I'm just nuts here. I thought this issue came up before, like a couple meetings ago.
Yeah.
And Nick said, paraphrasing, well, I don't know, but I interpret it like that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you,
Practice, that's what they do.
Yeah, that's what he said they do in practice.
I had an engineer come out to
Yeah.
my lot because I thought I
Yeah,
wanted to do
yeah,
it. I don't want to
yeah.
do it now. I'm not just looking at this through my eyes.
No,
But
it's not.
But we
Yeah.
talked about this.
Yeah.
And he said, this is Justin Willis. He does work, he's the person who does a lot of work in town.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, and I had another accessory dwelling unit on my other house over at Stevensville, and he did the work for that. And he said, you got to follow the regulations
For an accessory.
for an accessory structure. It's the same setback. So I know from experience in talking to him that that's how the rule is interpreted.
Yeah.
So that's how Nick was interpreting it.
Yeah,
He
agreed.
had to interpret
Agreed. Yeah.
So that's how today it's interpreted.
Yep,
So if we just
agreed.
leave it that way, those are the setbacks that we're going to stick with,
Mm-hmm.
if we just let that be.
Mhm.
But right now we're talking about changing it. And I think when you get into a 3-acre lot and you want to build an ADU, it's really hard to restrict it further, which it sounds like this is going to do to
I
me.
don't know that I'm not sure if it really is. I mean, it's saying that, if it's in conformance, if the appurtenant structure is in conformance, that's
Yeah.
20 feet from the.
The accessory
boundary line.
dwelling unit would be 20 feet from the sideline, no
Well, this
matter
is the
what.
structure. This is
Yeah, the structure could be, yeah,
not the dwelling unit.
right.
But then if the structure is, within conformance, and that means 20 feet from the boundary. in
The
most
existing
districts,
structure, if you want to put an ADU in an existing
Or
structure.
or a proposed
Okay,
structure.
yeah,
Yeah, you could. And then we have this further idea that it should be closer to the house than to the property boundary line.
closer to the existing house
Yeah,
than the property,
yeah.
the boundary line.
It is.
Man, like in my lot, it would have to be 20 feet from my house. Instead of
necessarily
50
between.
feet. What's that?
I mean, it could be off to the side, in the back, or.
No, and I'm thinking of my neighbor has a permit to do one on his lot too, because he subdivided the whole neighborhood. And, it's the same thing. It would have to be in a weird, you're forcing that accessory dwelling unit into a weird place on the lot that doesn't make sense.
Do you disagree with the rule if on a lot that doesn't do what you're talking about right now, I'm trying to figure out if is your disagreement more not practical or philosophical? I don't know. Here's what I'm trying to ask. Like, let's say, do you disagree? Like, let's take the extreme opposite example. Let's say a 15-acre lot, right?
Yeah.
Do you disagree with this principle on that lot? Like, hey, we want to avoid forest fragmentation, and you should have to deal with the noise coming from the ADU more than your neighbor does. So the ADU's got to be closer to you than the property boundary line. Do you disagree with that on a giant lot, like a 15-acre lot?
I do.
Okay, so your objection's more philosophical. I was trying to figure out if it was just on small lots. So I was going to say that's one course of action here. Or if you have a larger philosophical objection, that's
No.
different. Yeah.
And I mean, thinking about you or Tim, you both in the 15-acre.
I'm in 10. I'm in 10.
And you're in 10 or 15.
It's 10.
Yeah. Still, if you're far away from your neighbor pretty
Right.
well already.
Right.
And even if you build and I think most lots on the 10 or 15 acre,
Mm-hmm.
most houses on 15 or 10 acre in those zones are in logical places on the lot. They're not built right on the lot line or right close to another existing house.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to do you're going to respect your neighbor. I actually really feel that most people are going to respect their neighbor in this situation. So, but there's no real way for the neighbor to object right now either, because we're sticking to the accessory structure setbacks. That's how the law is interpreted right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what does everybody think about this? I guess I mean, this is.
Well, we could clarify it and just say that's what we want to do and make sure it is clear that way, because it isn't clear.
I think it should be clarified no matter what.
Yeah,
I'm with
yeah,
David. It shouldn't be however the ZA decides they should administer it, right? Like,
Yeah.
that definitely is not cool.
Right.
So the
Yeah, it's
question
not
is whether
clarified.
we
Yeah.
wanna-
Yeah. So we need to clarify it.
Yeah,
So,
So the question is whether we want to have this end is closer to the single family dwelling than to the property line. But, it could be in the back of the house. It could be farther away from the boundary line. There's an area, it's like this.
This is
section
about
there.
20 acres, this triangle lot. And,
Yeah.
So the dotted line is the setbacks.
Yeah.
And then this weird shape is, this pear-shaped thing is your allowable area to put your ADU under this rule.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm totally opposed to that, but that's my view. So,
Okay. Well, how do
I respect your view and everybody
In this
else's. But,
situation, where would you want to put
well, his neighbor is way over here. He's not even remotely close to this neighbor, and then your other neighbor is way over here. I would put it in the most logical spot relative to my house.
That's the difficulty with it, because once you dictate these kind of arbitrary parameters, you have such different lots and such different situations. It kind of pigeonholes certain people without a common sense.
Yeah.
Well, what you don't know is what your neighbor may subdivide and put a house, very close also. You just don't know what they're gonna do.
Right.
So all you can do is think about that lot and where you would put it there.
Yeah. Right.
See, what I like about the rule, I hear where you're coming from, by the way, Roy, and respect it. But what I like about the rule is that, and I think you could get to it other ways too, by the way, like saying you have to use the same driveway or something. But I think this prevents, like, all the subdivision rules are there for a reason, right? Whatever those reasons are, you can come up with 20. They're all there for a reason. If you don't have to put the ADU close to your house, you're effectively subdividing. You're not legally, but what you really are doing is subdividing a lot, right? Like, meaning, so you're chopping up the forest in two places, you're putting in two driveways, you're effectively just subdividing without subdividing, right? And not selling, but you've effectively just subdivided. I actually agree with you on small lots, by the way. I think we didn't think about, I would give a carve out for small lots, which is why I asked you that, just in my personal thinking. I understand 100% what you're saying. But on larger lots, I'd say you could also restrict it to the same driveway. For me, that would get you to the same place. It keeps everything from getting chopped up, which is what I like.
Can you say that and say it has to be within a minimum distance of the house?
Yeah, there's 20 different ways you could get to it. But yeah, but that's just my view. That's what I respect your view. And that's where I actually 100% agree with you on small lots based on the argument you made, having been to your house and seeing, I see what you're saying. But on the larger lots, I disagree with you.
Okay, well, I mean, so we need to,
Well, yeah, just, I don't
Formulate.
know, I don't know how other people feel, but yeah, I see what you're saying in small lots, so.
This may be too, too involved to try and, explain to other people when coming in too. This is what our rules are gonna be, and, questions come up, and, what is this anyway? How's it gonna work?
Well, that'd be on us though, no matter what we do, no matter how complicated
Well,
or
no,
easy it is,
I
we
mean,
gotta
it
make
could
sure
be
we
simpler,
explain
what-
it, yeah.
What Tim is saying, what Tim is saying is a simple solution, basically. It's just restricting it to the same driveway and perhaps within a certain distance of the house, having a kind of
Yeah.
parameter.
Well, the same driveway I have to take the blame for. Tim said distance of the house.
sorry.
Oh, you said driveway too. Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. I just didn't want to blame you. If it was, yeah. Yeah. To me, once you don't make them use the same driveway anymore, you've effectively subdivided a lot, even if you haven't done it
Pretty
legally.
disruptive. I agree.
yeah, I mean, if I had to stick to this on my lot, and if my neighbor had to stick to it on
Mhm.
his lot, both of us would put a separate driveway in.
Right.
Because I wouldn't do that right next to my house.
Right,
But on the other end of the lot, I could do it, but
right.
it's so ridiculous and expensive, and, I mean, we're trying to make it logical, I guess.
Right.
So.
Right. And maybe there is a different rule for a 2-acre lot. Like I could see, we could think through that. I could see there's compelling arguments around that. Where I'm trying to go philosophically is much more about fragmenting larger lots.
Yeah.
So, although I do think that having to live with stuff just as much as your neighbor does, if we can figure out a way to get to it, it's not a bad rule, which is why I like to force this idea.
It's a nice idea, but it may be too difficult to try and get across to people in selling the idea. That's the thing, but I like the idea of the driveway and a certain distance from the house. We might consider different distances for different size lot.
Well, maybe we should need to print out a copy of the setback regulations and go through
Well, it's 20 feet for all of them except for the
and then we could
villages.
just like go through it and just
Can I photocopy
contemplate what,
Oh.
because we got a 3
Do you mind?
acre zone, 5 acre zone, 10 acre
Yeah,
zone,
but
15 acre zone, and the
but
setbacks
still-
are,
Well, the setbacks for accessory structures is the same for them. That's,
Right.
20 for accessory structures is 20 feet, I think, for defined districts other than villages.
right.
So,
Thank you.
yeah,
And then people are gonna apply for a
20, 30.
accessory dwelling unit permit on non-conforming lots within those zones. So somebody might have a house on 2 acres in a 10-acre zone, and what do we do with that?
With a
That's a
non-conforming
non-conforming lot.
These are the
Yeah, right.
setbacks if
Well, you
anyone
have to have a
wants them.
statement about it. We have to
Thanks to
clear
Sandy.
that up.
It's just the setback chart that Sandy did, which is nice.
Wait, so the scenic is 15 acres, right? And then the rural is 10, and then the water,
Water's
no.
5.
water's 5,
Soil and water's 15, scenic's 10.
15, scenic is 10, water is 5, and then rural is 3?
Mhm.
Water is that 5, and rural is 3, okay. 30, 50. So this is. So it goes front, side, rear. Is that,
Mhm.
yeah, front, side, rear. Okay. Principal. So it's, okay, so it's 30, 20, 20 for all of them, basically for accessory structures.
Well, I'm thinking, okay, just to try and kind of keep things going, it seems like we're in agreement that it's just too complicated to try and work out Boris's really neat idea. You know, I like it, but it just sounds like it's just not gonna be able to be explained easily to people.
What do you think is the parent of this idea, Boris?
I have to put it up for adoption. Well, I was just thinking, when I was trying to draw this line, it's like, it's really cumbersome to try to calculate that. I mean, it's hard to do it on a piece of paper. It's imagine in real life, you know?
Yeah. Fair enough.
But on the other hand, is this less restrictive to do it this way than to set a, 20 feet from the house rule? You know, I would say this is a lot less restrictive.
I mean, because that's
That's
probably like 5 acres in
could
your
have
circle
something
there or something like that.
You could have something like this, you know, where you've got the primary structure here, and you've got your accessory dwelling, 200, you've got 500 feet across the property. You set the accessory structure 235 feet away from the house, 236 feet on either side away from boundaries, so it can be, way off in a corner. It's not really in the corner, but quite a ways away, basically.
On big lots, I don't disagree with anything you just said, Boris, about the complexity. And on big lots, it does give you a reasonably big envelope in terms of pure acreage. It will definitely be tighter if we come up with distances from the house.
Why do we need distances from the house?
Because then you don't fragment the whole area if you make it closer.
Because you gotta create two lots pretty much if you're gonna go that way.
There's another thing about this, a single family, being closer to a single family dwelling than to the property line. You have the accessory structure, people start doing things. What does closer mean? Okay, well, you run it to the closest part of the house. Yeah, but we've got a concrete wall that's underground here that goes 40 feet over that way. That's part of it. It's all connected to the house. So, people start doing that kind of a thing, basically, when they're working with these kind of distant measurements.
Would it, this is potentially the worst idea, just to get the conversation going. Would it make sense to say, like, based on each zoning district, solely because of the lot sizes, to basically have a chart and say it needs to be within, you could pick large distances in like soil and water or something to say, like, and I'm literally making up a number, to say it has to be within 1,000 feet here, 500 feet here. I'm literally making these up. You see what I'm saying? And then when you're in the village center, maybe it's not even a rule, right? Like you're just going off the setbacks or whatever, right? Like, because it makes no sense otherwise. But like, yeah. Maybe there's another approach that's way better.
It's nice and clear.
It's clear, right? Like,
and we're dealing with the big lots. It's we really want to help preserve some of the natural land around it. So it's really the big lots that are more sensitive to this kind of an idea.
I mean, maybe it doesn't even apply in a 3 or 5 acre lot. I don't know. But yeah.
So
maybe not.
Do we have any regulations now? About driveways and sharing the existing driveway for an accessory structure, or you could put an accessory structure in and put a new driveway in, or we're discouraging, but you have to get a curb cut, put an existing driveway in. So that's a separate deal altogether.
It's probably that's the, if I think, I don't know the answer.
There is sharing driveways in the regulations. I'm not exactly certain about the details of it, but it is in there. I don't know, I can't put my finger on it in a way.
Can I ask, is it worth at all considering the neighbor's primary dwelling, like as far as dictating a distance from them? Like your ADU has to be a certain distance from existing neighbor's primary dwelling.
No.
Well, their ADU could be, they have the same right as you do right now, right? So they could do exactly what you're doing if they wanted, I guess. Does
Not
that
sure.
play into it or not?
I don't know.
Probably not based on what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're just,
I don't know.
what you're basically addressing is just the annoyance.
It's the annoyance thing that you were
Yeah.
basically
Right.
I think that works for the annoyance factor. If you said it has to be, if you had a chart by district and said you have to be X number of feet away from the neighbor's house.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it wouldn't address forest fragmentation.
I know, I like, for me personally, it's good to think about the whole picture and not just the minutia of one lot. Like
Yeah.
Your lot, my lot.
We can get caught up in.
Yeah, and then if you were to, in general, if you were to have, I think, I can honestly say, I think if you have some reasonable setbacks, people are gonna do what's best and logical and not do something that's bad for their neighbors. I think I'm gonna do this, but it's bad for my neighbor. I think that's gonna be a very small portion of anybody doing this. I really believe that, but,
I agree, I largely agree with you. I will say, not to pick on a subset of people, but if your house here is a vacation house or you're not a primary resident here, you just might not think about it, right?
Yeah.
You're like, hey, this is the cheapest place to put the ADU.
do it.
Do it.
Yeah, rent it.
And I don't think we're not picking on numbers saying those are bad people. I just think you don't think about it in the same way. Whereas if I'm your next door neighbor, I'm like, I got to see Roy every single day. Like, I'm not.
They give me some sign language on the way out the driveway.
I just think it's different when you actually live next door.
I do too. Yeah. I mean, I would never do something mean like that to my neighbor. It's like I totally respect that. But it's, and I think everybody here
Right.
do that.
Of course.
But there's always going to be maybe that one person.
Yeah.
Are we designing these rules for that one person? Or are we designing them for the other 98% of us? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess that's, I don't know.
Roy, how big is your lot?
3 acres. So if I had to keep it closer to my house, I would put another driveway in, and I'm not going to do it anyway because it's just, I don't need that. I don't want it. But my other neighbor across the street, he has the same situation going on, and it would put him into a bad place, I guess. As far
Are you
as,
talking about the new house that's right on the road?
across the street, he has a permit for ADU.
Does he?
Yeah, and
For a
You know,
separate structure?
yeah, he's already got the permit though. So for a garage apartment, we can't take that away from him. But
None of this stuff's gonna happen for months anyway.
yeah, exactly. But and I can also think of another ADU I built on Sand Hill on a 5-acre lot that was 20 feet from the property line. And it was still far away from the other house over here. And if it had to be in a different spot than where it was, it would be so convoluted, because if it had to be if we increased the setback to 30 feet or 40 feet, it would have been, he would have had to rethink the whole thing.
Mhm.
And it would really worked well where it was. So I'm just thinking like real life scenarios, I guess, that I've seen. And then
So that one is on 3-acre lot?
on 5,
Yeah. That's on a 5-acre lot.
the other on one on Sand Hill, that I built.
So if we had if we took the 10-acre and 15-acre lot and have a somewhat restrictive on that as far as the same driveway and an envelope of some kind for the building of an accessory structure within 200, 300 feet or whatever from the main house.
That would address most of solely for me, that would address most of my concerns. 'Cause I agree with you on the good neighbor stuff. I do worry about absentee owners, but to your point, you can't legislate for like the one bad actor. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's like without that rule that you just said, David, like all the rules that exist for all these reasons in the large zoning districts about wildlife reports and the lake, you may as well just toss them out because you can effectively subdivide the lots for ADUs.
Yeah, I think it looks okay. I think we can really support that idea and get that across, 10 and 15 acres.
So what do we want to do? Think about what we want to do.
So think about, or I can put together something for the 10 acre and 15 acre lots on the 3, and we've already, on the village centers, we're already.
Yeah.
All right, just.
Yeah.
Lock it up. Or-
So when we leave, it'll just lock behind us?
Yeah, just make sure it's shut.
Okay.
Just,
Feel like we can handle that.
just hit, just shut that down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, you got it. Thanks, Fred.
By the way, all the ARPA requests were
Oh,
approved, with the exception of the solar,
huh. Cool.
which do be determined.
Well, I can only, I don't know. I can put
However,
something together.
I mean, I like this whole concept, same driveway, the larger lots should have some restriction that way. But it can't be the whole zone because not everybody in the scenic zone has 10 acres, some have 50. So, I mean, in the water and rural, you might be in the water district, but you have 30 acres. So if we say there's no restrictions in that zoning district,
No, I think we do it by lot size. I think that's the cleanest. Maybe when you take a shot at it, just say if the lot exceeds 5 acres.
it doesn't matter which zoning district you're in. It's just if you have lot sizes that are X and above.
Oh, no, I think we have to stick to the district regulations and, set it as, this is a district regulation for the scenic area and
Right.
soil and water. We'll keep it simple.
Well, then they all need to have it then, other than the villages.
Well, no, not necessarily. The scenic and the soil and water, that's a 15, right? The soil and water.
So water should see.
But what I'm saying, David, is that just because you're in the rural district doesn't mean that you only have 3 acres.
Right.
You might have 15 acres. And if if our whole goal is to try not to fragment things, then we would have to have the same rule across the
Although
board.
you create a reverse incentive to subdivide.
Yeah, they can subdivide anyway.
Because if they could subdivide in that zone, but they can't do the ADU in that zone,
Yeah.
then are you encouraging subdivisions?
Well, you're forbidding it, basically. Yeah. So I don't think we should do that. If somebody's got 30 acres in a 3 acre zone, wants to subdivide, he has a right to do that.
Why don't you take a shot at it, David?
Yeah, I will.
You've been-
I will. I'll put
you've been
something
on-
together and see what we
Can I ask a dumb question just before you, because I think I'm not thinking, but this is literally a structural, this is not a substantive question. When I read the whole page, don't the way A reads, where it says one accessory dwelling unit located within a single family dwelling is allowed as long as it meets these rules.
It's following, these.
Those rules only apply to an accessory dwelling within a single family home, right?
Yeah, that's where this,
But here's my other, but in that section, in that big section A, don't 2 and 3 also apply to standalone accessory dwelling units in B that are in a different structure?
yeah.
Do you think we need to copy B and C down below? Because that 30% rule still applies if it's in a standalone structure. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Maybe some reference or something. just to
Something
make
like that,
sure
right?
it
Yeah.
is covered throughout.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's my comment.
Yeah,
I think B,
okay.
2 and 3 up above also apply to B
Yeah, they
when
do.
it's in the, that's my comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I notice in some of the regulations, they don't repeat some of this stuff, but, I'll look it over, see if we make sure it's clear.
Cool,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, but we've got this distinction between what would be a permitted use and what would be a conditional use. We have to keep that distinction, I think, because there are certain areas in non-conforming some sort that you should be allowed a conditional use if it's feasible and not, reasonable, basically. So,
Like if you had
but you can't
2 acre
really,
lot, a house on 2 acres in the 10-acre zone, that would be a conditional use because it's a non-conforming lot. Is that where you're going? Yeah. So they would have to,
no, not necessarily. It could be a permitted use because it's a pre-existing lot.
oh, okay, yeah, that's right. So,
Yeah.
where does the conditional use come into play? If
Well, it
the
might come
existing
into play,
structure,
you've got a very tight, lot. It's got ledges on one side and it's got, wetland on another side. And the regulations say 100 feet from the wetland.
Mhm.
And, the state says 50 feet. And, you go before the development review board and they say, well, you really can't do anything unless it's in this, within the setback that is required in Underhill, but okay, but it would be okay by the state, so they could say, okay, we'll let you do that. I think that's how they act in that situation. If you're forbidden from doing anything other than having having the accessory dwelling within the setbacks, but not violating a state law.
So it's really all about setbacks. Number 2 is all about setbacks.
right?
Yeah.
Well, now here, I guess they can do it now. Never mind. I don't have a question. Can the DRB waive? Isn't the DRB subject to a limit on what setback they can only like chop the setback in half or something like that, can't they? They can't let you.
50%.
50%. That's what it is.
But, and that's, so that's okay with the 100-foot, 50-foot situation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
I
guess
think, yeah.
I'm wondering, does Boris's rule make sense? Sorry not to stir the pot, but does Boris's rule make sense in this scenario at all? And conditional use? Do you want any limitation on where the DRB could they, on the DRB waiving this on these small lots? Like, is there any concern about a bad actor here where you're just like almost have no setback whatsoever?
I don't know.
How do people feel about that? Or no, we don't
Not sure
care
what you're saying.
I think they could sort through
what the DRB sort through it.
difficult situations that are not clear. They're pretty good at interpreting.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, I think they will allow situations that aren't really causing any harm, and the property owner can't do anything other than that.
Are there any other issues on ADUs or subject to David figuring out how to apply 2 and 3 to down below in dealing with, I guess I'll just sum it up as forest fragmentation issues or driveway issues or whatever, which we need to work through as a group. Is there anything, is everyone good with this otherwise? Like, are those our last 2 things?
Yeah.
So, okay, so we'll be talking about a driveway and an envelope, basically, in the 10-acre zone area and the 15-acre zone area, but not in the 3 or 5-acre zone areas.
Everyone agrees with that, like 5, we don't.
yeah, there's a lot of those.
Yeah, not proposing otherwise, just, okay.
Right.
And all those,
Well,
there is something
that, just to confirm that.
what's that?
So I would want to look at the zoning map just to confirm that, just to get the overall big picture of where.
Like what we're actually applying
where
this
the
to.
5-acre zoning, or where the 5-acre lots exist.
Like Sand
5-acre
Hill,
zoning
Irish Hill,
exists,
right.
yeah. That's mostly from Underhill Flats to Underhill Center, that water district. That's what the 5-acre zoning is.
Okay.
Or, yeah, that's the water conservation district.
And the map is on the town site.
Okay.
Find it
I'll take a
there.
look.
Well, yeah, everyone can, well, that's a good point. Oh, okay. Everyone can look at it.
Yeah, I gotta look at that.
Okay.
We've got a new town site, I understand. They've upgraded the town.
Oh, yeah, they do. Although, I don't know if this has changed it. I was very confused by the photo that we chose for them. or lack thereof.
Well, I don't mean to throw in a distraction, I think if there's anything else on this, what I've started here, and if any other ideas, I'll just go ahead on this and
Yeah, I think is our goal to wrap up ADUs next meeting then?
Yeah,
It seems like,
it'd be good.
It's a good goal.
Spent like 5 meetings on it.
I know.
Anyway.
We'll come back and
Oh, it
start
is-
talking again.
it is probably the hottest topic in planning these days, better, I don't know.
Hard to get it right, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Okay, so the next meeting, we can, unless someone has anything else, we can wrap a few minutes early. Next meeting then, Sandy, maybe we'll open with,
Sure.
well, actually, let's flip that, sorry. Let's try to finish this and then do the climate summary.
Okay,
That's cool.
how are we going to do?
That makes sense, right? Try to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Next meeting is, will be
July 6th, is that right?
July what?
Was it July 6th?
6th. I just,
Yeah, I think that's right, July 6th. We get a long break, I think, because of the way the Thursdays fall.
Yes. 6th.
Yeah, we have 2 weeks off, basically.
Have they advertised for next position?
Yes, the only reason I know that is why I saw it on 7 Days website.
Ooh, that was quick.
I did not click on the ad. It's such a stunning lack of
Yeah,
actual
it's-
curiosity. Yes, it was. It was on 7 Days. I know that.
You want the job?
Yeah, I thought.
No, don't want it. I actually volunteered you. I said, I know this
No, I don't-
guy, pretty much
Yeah.
mostly
Wanna
retired,
be a-
nothing but free time, ready to be a zoning administrator. I actually submitted resumes for both of you guys.
On the ground experience.
If you saw me tight, you wouldn't hire me. Or if you saw my desk.
All right, can we get a motion to adjourn?
I'll say, let's adjourn.
Is there a second?
Okay.
David, all in favor?
I beat
Do you want to do your job and stop recording?